Hello, everybody. Great to be back on the stage at Slush, and quite frankly, a little bit terrifying as well. This is huge. So let's be very nice to our companies. I'll try and be nice with my questions, but it'd be great if you guys could be very encouraging and give them a big round of applause when they come on and when they come off after pitching as well. I think Maria and the Crown Prince wanted to take all the glory for Norway, so they actually took 2 Norwegian companies in the first half. So I have taken 2 from Iceland, so we don't have any from Norway in this one. 2 from Iceland, 1 from Sweden, 1 from Denmark as well. So my job at the Nordic Web is that we cover these companies on a day-to-day basis. So I have the pleasure of kind of looking at what these guys are up to and looking at what hot companies there are. And I can tell you that the companies that we have coming up right now truly are some of the best up-and-coming in the region. So I'm very excited to see what they have to say in their presentations, and then when I do the Q&A afterwards with them. First up, we have one of our Icelandic companies. We have Ben from RVX. So please welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben Bohn from RVX. We are a virtual reality studio based in Reykjavik, Iceland. It's a real pleasure for us to be a part of the top 10 of the Nordic Showcase, of course. And I wanted to tell you a bit about our journey at RVX and through the wonderful new world of virtual reality. We're the co-producers of Everest VR, which was our very first big milestone in virtual reality. One of the most anticipated VR experience of this year, and it was a very important and proud moment for us to release Everest VR, because releasing a major virtual experience in the very first year of consumer VR was something that we really wanted to achieve, and it was very important for us because it told us, of course, a lot about VR in terms of development platform, in terms of creative platform, and in terms of market, of course, because that was a very big part of it. I'm going to tell you a bit more about our future and what we're going to do and how we came to the conclusion of what we want to do. Quick history, RVX is very much the result of kind of 2 branches of evolution of digital entertainment, film and gaming. We are a bit of a melting pot of those 2 branches, and we saw them merging together into what is called today virtual reality, because it's a new way to transport you, to transport your senses, to transport your emotion to another place. And that's something that is really a revolution in entertainment and in digital media. There are a lot of things in VR that are still being figured out, and that's also why it's very fascinating and interesting for us, being there at the beginning, helping shaping all that. And Everest VR was an example of that. It's not a game per se, it's not a pure narrative storyline, it is both. It's an experience, it's an experience with agency, it's a gamified discovery of an alternative kind of reality. And that's a typical example of what virtual reality can be. Now, all that in virtual reality is great and exciting, but of course we all know those kind of graphs when you're starting to embark on a new technology, and when you think as a company where you stand in those kind of timelines, it's not always the most comfortable moment, of course, but you have to have the courage to go through that, because there is a lot of experimentation going on, a lot of demos, platforms are pushing to become a bit the standard, and of course a quite limited still, but very demanding user base already. It's all quite chaotic. It's a bit of an organic ecosystem. It's often the case when you have new emerging technology where it's a bit all over the place, a lot of hype, which is both your best friend and your worst enemy as well. And it's important when you're in those stages to look at the long run and to build towards something that can scale and that can basically create a long tail. And we realize that what we need to create right now in virtual reality is traffic, it's momentum, it's finding ways to have content that becomes a force multiplier for other types of content that you have also in VR. Instead of making self-contained kind of single individual VR experiences, we decided to go and create kind of a portal where you can actually merge those different experiences and make them interact with each other. And we love the idea of discovery and virtual tourism. We love, because of our history in gaming and films, to do things that can transport you to places. So we decided to kind of go to where those two things of like virtual tourism and experiences merge. I mean, tourism is a 7 trillion business globally. Virtual reality is expected to be over 100 billion in a business in a few years. So we place ourselves right in the middle there. And we want to offer content where you can not only experience things, but also branch out to the real world through integration of social media, even booking of real-life tourism experiences and things like that. So that's a bit the journey I wanted to tell you that took us from Everest VR and all the way through our history in film and gaming towards this kind of platform there. Thank you.
I almost have to run.
Hey.
Good presentation, Ben.
Thank you.
I read an interesting article this morning, actually, that PlayStation VR is actually outselling Oculus and the Vive for this year. To me, that kind of shows that in consumers' minds, gaming is very synonymous with VR, and kind of that's where the consumers are using it right now. Do you think that will change, and how will that change?
I think it will change. I think it's very natural, and it's often the case when you see new platforms and new technology that the gaming industry jumps in kind of first, because by nature, and coming from that industry, I've experienced that by nature, it's the kind of developers that are very interested to use the new technology and to make something out of it. I think it will change because virtual reality is probably only a first step towards augmented reality in a more distant, but not that distant future. So yeah, gaming definitely is a big part of the market now, but it's not going to be the only bit of it, of course.
Something that amazes me is, despite only 300,000 people, Iceland is really like a good VR hub. Like, some of the most exciting companies in the Nordics in VR are coming from Iceland. Yeah. So why is there this like massive VR talent there, and how did that happen, and why is that?
I don't know. I think it's because Iceland, and especially Reykjavik, is an extremely open and curious platform that has a very strong history in high tech, and kind of naturally, it's something that started to interest people there, and it's a quite mature developers ecosystem. I don't know, it's hard to say. Maybe it's also because we like to escape and imagine other worlds when we're in Iceland. Yeah. And that's part of it. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. That actually would have been my answer, but Iceland is a beautiful country, but the landscape lends itself very well to kind of another world experience, I think, actually. So you talked a little bit about your story, but why now? Why are you kind of taking this direction now? Why are you productizing this now? You've been around for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, RVX has been around since 2008, and we've been working on major Hollywood film for visual effects, post-production, and so on. But I think now it's just It's because virtual reality is a new opportunity to. Gunnarsson, our creative director, often says it's a great opportunity to be magicians again.
Yeah.
And once you've worked in major projects, in game, in films, and so on, you cannot ignore those kind of opportunities. And there is so much to define. There is so much to create there and even innovate. That of course, I don't know. It was a very obvious. It's almost not a decision. It just happened, and it's something that we had to do.
Cool. Thank you for your great presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to Ben.
Thank you.
So, next up, we have a company from Denmark in the HR space. This company is called Peakon, and to present them is their co-founder, Phil Chambers. Please welcome Phil to the stage. Thank you.
Hello, Slush. Hi, my name's Phil Chambers. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Peakon. I join you here today from Copenhagen. Well, I say we're from Copenhagen. I'm actually English, but I've been living there 6.5 years, so I've got about 18 more months before Brexit kicks in and I'll have to go home. So, Peakon, what is Peakon? We are a SaaS platform, and we're a SaaS platform that basically helps anyone in your business who manages people make better people decisions, in short. So why did we start this business? Well, for two reasons mainly. The first reason is that we're great believers in people. And this is Jerry Sanders from A&D's old adage. If you put people first, products and profit will follow. But what we saw when we first founded Peakon was that actually most businesses weren't really following this mantra. Whilst tooling in most other areas of the business had become much more data-driven, in people weren't really making database decisions. They were making decisions based on gut feeling. And we really believe that if you have a great team of people, you give them a stretch goal, then they can achieve great things. And if you look at companies that we're all familiar with, like Facebook, Airbnb, Google, they definitely follow this mantra. And the days of command and control management really are gone. And if you treat your millennials like that, they're liable to walk out and join your nearest competitor. The second part really was that data is now king in many, many decisions, and we wanted to apply that to the science of people. So why is this a big problem? Well, Gallup reckons it's a $350 billion problem. And these figures basically are looking at the amount of disengaged people in the world. So if you follow the statistics and you read various studies, anywhere between 30% and 70% of people are actively disengaged with their jobs. And of course, we're talking about people outside the world of Slush. Of course, we all might work in a very, very cool tech company, and we get to bring a dog into the office, but most people actually don't really like their job. They're working till 5 o'clock, just till the end of the month, trying to earn the paycheck, and not actively engaging. So this is obviously a huge, huge issue. And if we could make a difference to 5% to 10% of the workforce, and this is obviously a game changer, not only for the people who work in these companies, but for the companies themselves, and of course, for the economy as a whole. And the irony of it is that these people-based data decisions are actually some of the easiest data available to you if you listen, much easier than collecting customer data or indeed market research. So what's the answer to this? Well, really, it is to move to evidence-based decisions. So we already make evidence-based decisions in sales, in marketing, in operations. However, 80% of the cost, 70 to 80% of the cost in all businesses is on people. So we're moving from a world of gut feel to evidence-based. And Laszlo Bock, of course, from Google, said that people management decisions based on analytics are some of the most important and impactful decisions that a firm can make. And that's obviously worked for them. But how's it working for our customers? Well, we started 2 years ago now, out of my bedroom, myself and Dan. We spent the first year building a prototype to get us to the stage where we had something that we would like to take out to customers. We then used our 20 free customers as a lever to raise some money. So we got ID Invest and Sunstone on board. And then start of January this year, we launched publicly and actually started to charge people real money. Peakon today has grown out of its office in Copenhagen And we've now opened in London in April, and we've just opened a bigger office in London this fall. We've got about 100 customers on the platform. And I'd like to leave you with this quote from Wolfgang Steiner, one of our favorite customers, who's the CEO of Designer, who said, "Peakon is like buying a fighter jet that you actually get to fly yourself." And that's how it makes management in these companies feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. 2 Brits on stage and no one has,
Yeah,
there's no beer in
off.
sight. I don't know, what kind of conference is this?
I thought you were going to bring them, Neil.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so actually, you kind of alluded to it when you spoke just then about yourself being based in London right now. Why did you make that decision to kind of have some of the team in London, some of the team in Copenhagen? Is there better commercial talent in one, technical talent in the other, or is there a reason?
Well, quite simply, I was in Podio, a company called Podio before, running tech and product, and then we had a ready-made startup community in Copenhagen, and it's much easier for us to hire great engineering talent, great product talent, great design talent, especially in Copenhagen, because we're not competing with Google and Facebook, who we just mentioned so often in my presentation, but we're competing with the startup ecosystem there. So it made sense for us to start there. Of course, the market opportunity is much, much bigger in the UK, particularly London. So when we decided where we want to put sales and marketing, it was the next obvious choice.
And on your website, you kind of list some impressive clients. You've got Opera on there, I noticed. And the kind of theme that I saw with them was that they were kind of not startups, but they all kind of were quite innovative in their thinking already. Do you have a challenge attracting more traditional companies to your product? Because I've worked at some corporates in the past, and I know how long change can take, especially in these types of platforms.
It's a really good question. And of course, when we started the business, we rang up our friends, and they mostly work in tech startups, so that's who you initially start to sell to. I have to say, though, this looks like the kind of product to me that in 5 years' time every business will have. And it's, you don't see people talking about waterfall software development anymore. Everyone's moved to agile. And it's the same with people, right? Continuous listening is a very, very sensible thing to do. And now, we've got even some of our biggest clients, like John Lewis partnership with 89,000 employees, are actually running Peakon in a weekly fashion, right? Which is amazing. And people are really buying into it.
One of the biggest trends we've seen on the Nordic web this year in terms of venture capital coming into the region is that French VCs have really kind of started to become interested. And you have a French VC, ID Invest.
We do.
How did that come about? Was it because they were in the region? How did you attract their attention?
Yeah, I think they were definitely looking to get into the Nordic region. And it was fortuitous timing. I happened to be in a co-working space called Founders House. Guillaume Durau, who's our partner, came in and wanted to meet a load of companies. And he was diligent enough to keep in touch with us every step of the journey. So I came to him and showed him a PDF. I had very, very, very little, but he believed in the vision. And then, he checked in with us every month. And by the time we had 20 customers, then he was like ready to write a check. And since then he's done a lot of work in the Nordics. So yeah, it's been great for us, and obviously really good for us to get into the French market too.
And what about customer retention? Because I can imagine this is a type of product that kind of once you're in, you're kind of in, right? Like there's not many options where they would look elsewhere, or if you're doing a good job, you're not really likely to use the customer. Is that right?
I think so. And one of our key differentiators and how we can compete against other people is provide a level of service that maybe big consultancies just can't provide, right? And we go the extra mile. So we haven't had anyone churn yet, touch wood. But it's all going well, and I hope it continues that way.
Yeah. So what's the goal for next year? Kind of what's the major milestone that you guys want to kind of hit next year?
I think that for us, we're moving up in operational complexity, right? So the mechanics of handling a 50-person startup on a platform, very, very different to handling like true enterprise customer with tens of thousands of seats, matrix management structures, offices all around the globe. So we're already in 18 languages, right? So we're massively expanding that and be able to work with the world's biggest enterprises. That's our ambition.
And you're growing the team in London and Copenhagen?
Yeah, so we've got about 12 people in each place now, if that adds up. We're hiring in both locations, so if you'd like a job at Peakon, then drop us a note.
I don't know why I allowed him to
do that,
to pitch a job opening. Now I feel like I have to let all the other companies have a go as well. But yeah, that was great, Phil. Thank you very much, and please give Phil a round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
So, Next up, we have a homegrown company, so perhaps the applause will be even louder. We have Toni, who is going to tell us about KNL networks. So please welcome Toni to the stage. Thanks.
Hello everyone, super excited to be here. Didn't realize the stage is so big and there are so many of you. Also very proud to be part of these excellent Nordic companies presenting here. About KNL Networks, the company was established back in 2011 for providing a truly global communication. In the beginning there was quite a bit of technical things to be solved, so that was where our main focus was. But when things developed, we realized that on a performance-wise, we are pretty much head-to-head with the satellite communication. So we started looking if there's any kind of a business available, which I think it's quite essential for any company. And we realized that there is actually trillions of dollars industry out there that is the biggest single industrial user of satellite communication. Here in Slush, it's quite easy to think that everyone are super connected. Like when I'm watching the audience, half of the people are just playing with the cell phones when I'm desperately trying to get your attention. Those cell phones are actually transported by ship. And those ships are operated the most isolated people on the world, the seamen. Currently, seamen are less connected than people on space. So what we did, we took the very old-fashioned shortwave radio that no one was interested in and reinvented it. We took the latest cognitive radio and software radio technologies and combined it with the physics that already Marconi used back on 1890s for sending signals from North America to Europe. We also realized that maritime business is global, so we need to have a global network in order to provide services to our customers. And the system needs to be designed such that we are always able to provide the best available connectivity. So we ended up in a situation where we have a totally independent global communication network, dedicated hardware what you need in order to join the network, patented proprietary radio protocols, and direct access to all the users of the system, everything in our own hands. In our network, each and every user can operate either as a base station or as a terminal, depending on status and connections available. So we don't actually own the network, or we don't own the base stations, but we only operate the network created by our customers. In our system, the distance between the terminal and a base station can be up to 10,000 kilometers. So basically, we can cover the globe already with a handful of customers in the network. So what's our value proposition to the industry? First of all, we are simple. So we are simple guys, but also the system is quite simple. We have the most advanced radio system in the world, and it only has one user interface, which is a power switch. The system is also secure. I dare to say that there's not a single governmental body that can actually prevent the communication in our network. And it's unlimited. It's kind of easy to think that it's unlimited data, but we would actually like to think it's more unlimited opportunities. So that's what's all about in the KNL networks. Thank you.
Thank you, Toni. And thank you for standing this side. Actually, it's my preference to stand on this side, so thanks. So Facebook and Google kind of operating in this space. Most people will probably think that's a bad thing, these big tech giants, kind of, how are you going to take them on? But for me, I actually see that as a good thing, right? It shows that the opportunity is there, shows that people are taking this seriously, and it kind of provides some opportunities for you as well. So I'd just like your perspective on that. Well, what's it like to be competing against that type of company?
Well, of course, it's quite thrilling. And I think that most of the companies are hustling in space because they have to.
Yeah.
So I think Elon Musk is pretty much the only one who wants to, because of the expenses and so on. But I think that with, let's say, modern technology, modern systems, using all kind of combinations, you can do miracles also on terrestrial communication.
And so what you guys are doing is clearly more cost effective, I'd imagine, right? But are there any kind of drawbacks of that? And why aren't kind of Facebook and Google doing something exactly like you're doing?
Well, of course we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but I can see that there's more and more, let's say, connectivity options coming that are based on a terrestrial system. Some of them are very like a short-range communication, and then there's other end like our solution.
And kind of, this is a bit of a weird question, but is there like a finite point that you guys get to? Like, imagine a world where everyone is connected. Is that one, possible in your opinion? And two, how do you see that playing out for you guys?
Yeah, well, definitely it's doable. That's what we're doing. And but of course, if you think about the B2C connectivity, there's still some things to do. So the world is not ready. But I think that when we are at the point when everyone has the internet, then there's already quite a lot of new things coming. So
what is your goal? Like in terms of, do you have a number of people that you want to connect, or a number in mind, or like kind of what are you guys striving towards? What's the milestone you're looking for?
Yeah, well, we are mainly concentrating on a B2B, and what we want to do is kind of to be the enabler of IoT, and especially on those, let's say, typically quite heavy industry that is on a remote locations and so on.
Okay. And you just raised 10 million. So what's the plan for that? How will you spend that money?
Oh, we just lay back and see it burning. So,
we're on the right stage for it.
No, just kidding. So our kind of customers are all more or less global. So that's what we need to do. So having global operations, it's somewhat expensive. And then we also have some new, quite fancy thing on R&D coming. So we are not kind of stopped on that field as well.
Not ready to announce that yet. No. And you need a lot of money. 10 million actually is a big round in the Nordics. It's an A round, right? Like that's a big size in the Nordics. But to take on these big companies that we're talking about, don't you need even more than that? Or is it just about being smarter, being more nimble?
Well, I think that all the big companies been startup at some stage. Yep. So we are now on a very, let's say, early taking the first steps on that path. So, like I said, the world is not ready yet.
Okay, and so next year it's all about the R&D development. Is that what you're mainly looking to get out of next year?
No. It's of course the R&D and the technology plays a very important role in our DNA. But more and more, it's about sales and global operations.
Okay. So how long have you guys been running now?
Since 2011, so it's coming six years. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How many times have you been to Slush? Since you're from Finland?
I think this is our third time. So first year it was only just kind of looking around, didn't really kind of even get the whole idea. Last year we were kind of trying to get the A round in place. So I was trying to get the investors and so on, and now it's totally kind of upside down. So I just tried to get a little bit kind of a space before this presentation and so on. So it's
first time on the big stage?
Yeah.
Okay, another milestone.
Yeah.
Please give it up for Toni. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just actually a little observation is 5 years ago, or still now, right? We talk about startups disrupting those traditional companies. What is striking me with these companies' presentations, and actually with another company we're going to see at the end, is actually the companies they're competing against are actually Google, Facebook, those type of companies. So this is really quite a kind of development, I think, in the tech industry. Rather than talking about disrupting those traditional companies, we're now talking about disrupting those. Next up is our final Icelandic company, second one of this session, and we have Stéfan from Solid Clouds. So please welcome him to the stage.
Hello everybody, my name is Stefán Gunnarsson. I'm the CEO and founder of Solid Clouds, a game studio based in Reykjavík, Iceland. I want to start by saying what a pleasure it is to be here and give my thanks for the opportunity to speak today. It's strange to say, but Solid Clouds is founded out of frustration. I've been playing strategy computer games since the 80s. Started with board games, and then single-player computer games, play-by-mail games, not emails, I'm talking about physical mail. And then I spent a better part of a decade playing massively multiplayer real-time strategy games, or MMO RTS for short. And that's where the frustration began. In the later parts of the 2000s, I realized that the design of the MMO RTS games was stagnating. I kept waiting for someone to unite the empire-building experiences of 4X games like Civilization with the politics inherent to a massively multiplayer setting. The frustration grew as the decade wore on, until I decided finally just to research the MMO RTS market. That research prompted me to switch careers, finished a degree in computer science, and found Solid Clouds with the explicit purpose of creating a massively multiplayer 4X game. For the first year, we kept it small, just me and one programmer, to get a prototype up and running. But ambition drove us. Our game plan, our research, and the prototype attracted capital, and that in turn attracted talent. Today, there are 13 people working on Starborn. Most notably of those are Hrafnkell Óskarsson, first game designer of EVE Online, and Ásgeir Ásgeirsson, former art director of EVE Online. Both have nearly 20 years of game industry experience by creating MMOs. The intent is to create a sophisticated, massively multiplayer game with a AAA polish. We are bringing together all the loved game mechanics of classic 4X games with the depth and variables that comes from a massively multiplayer element. We're putting a lot of effort into creating a beautiful, vibrant map that impacts gameplay in a meaningful way. We'll provide these experiences both on mobile and desktop, and that means PC, Linux, and Apple. But not the least, I think Starborn is a prime candidate for augmented and virtual reality, where players can explore the map and enjoy themselves with a bird's eye view in a tranquil setting. Starborn is right now in alpha testing, and we aim to launch, I think, late next year. And I want to show you a small teaser of the alpha version. For some reason, it was not performing as expected. But on each map, there will be 6,000 to 20,000 players. And each game will last about 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. And great trailer. I've seen it before, and so I know how impressive it looks. It looks incredible. I don't want to make you run before you can walk. Of course, you're still very much focused on Starborn and taking that on and launching it.
Yeah.
But I wonder what your plan as a company is for new games. Do you see yourselves as kind of a prolific producer of games, or I imagine games like this, they take time.
Yeah.
So how do you see that rollout? What's the plan?
So even though the passion and the start is creating a massively multiplayer 4X game, we are still building a company, and that's our primary focus.
Yep.
Starborn is the first of a product line. We can use the core game mechanics for other products, such as a game with a Mad Max feel. That would be quite nice. A little bit more of a casual game, even single-player games. And so there are endless options and a lot of examples of other companies that have done this.
Yeah, definitely. What about VR? Is that something that you guys have thought about at all? Seems like that's the hot topic of the day, especially in Iceland, as we talked about before.
I love the idea of VR. But for a small studio like ours, we need to make money. We don't have the time to wait out the VR winter. But I definitely can see a game like Starborn in the future in a VR setting, where you can just immerse into the game with a equal eye aspect, and just imagine also Ender's Game. Yeah. So sure, I think also for augmented reality, I think I see a lot of potential there.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it lends itself very well, at least from what I've seen. What about people like me? I'm not a gamer at all, right? I dabbled with Pokemon Go or play FIFA occasionally, but do you care about attracting new gamers or new people to your game? Because I imagine that the people that play this type of game, there's an existing community already. So is it about attracting them rather than new people?
I expect us always to prioritize on the lowest hanging fruits. And that would probably be the existing community before we create and introduce and teach new players how this works. But I think there's a lot of potential. It's like the 4X games like Civilization. We're kind of going back to the roots with the board game theme and the MMORPG game. So there's a lot of potential. So everyone that likes strategy games should find something that they like.
And the community is very strong in this field, right? How do you leverage that? How do you engage them?
Oh, the first marketing person I hired was actually a community manager. So yeah, community is everything. And even in our latest alpha test, and we are located in Iceland, there are still foreigners coming over to meet us that actually played the game, all the way from Dubai and other European countries. So I'm seeing the seeds being planted and the first leaves coming up.
Yeah, that's excellent. And thank you for showing us the demo. Good luck with launching Starborn next week. I nearly gave you a panic attack. And please say thank you to Stéfan and give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we have our final company now. It's Erik from Mapillary from Sweden. Not from Stockholm. Stockholm always gets all the credit, so I will specify that he's their Malmo company. So I thought I would give a shout out to the southern Swedes for once. And Erik will present Mapillary. I've been watching them for a long time, so I'm really interested to see what he has to say and has to show you guys. So please welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Hello, Slush. Thank you all for staying this late. I know it's been a really long day for some of you. I was invited here to talk a little bit about Mapillary and about how we're enabling people to map the world using simple tools like smartphone and action cameras. So, Mapillary is a service for crowdsourcing street photos, Street View if you're Google, photos like this, and they're generated mainly using their own phones. And so to date, we've mapped over 2 million kilometers in over 190 countries, all community-based, and a few days ago, we passed 100 million photos contributed to the platform. Thank you. Here's one of my favorite examples. San Francisco has been entirely mapped, all directions, with action cameras. The cost of investment to one of these cameras is $200. So you don't need any fancy tools to scale this up and map the world. And so if you ever thought about how the maps and the navigation that you use on your smartphones, how that's made, you will realize that people are doing some really crazy, like mind-blowing, non-scalable things when they're building maps. They're driving fleets of cars and they're spending billions doing that. They hire thousands of people to manually sit and extract information from the imagery that they collect. So the maps of the future are going to require better coverage, more frequent updates. And so if you're going to achieve that, you need to add, you can't just do the top-down approach, you need to add a bottoms-up approach where everyone can contribute, anyone with any tool. And so that's what we're doing. Here's an example of how you achieve scalability in the data capture side. This is from Lesotho. It's the best mapped country in Africa. And it is the best mapped country because of people like these, walking around with their tablets, walking around with their smartphones, collecting data. This is another example, a group of volunteers mapping, in this case, Brussels, with $200 360 cameras on selfie sticks. You don't need a car to do this. And so people are taking their phones when they're out walking. You can even map trails. People are putting action cameras on the hood of their car, on the roof of their car. They're putting up their smartphones. Whatever tool you have, you can contribute imagery with that. And then what we do is that we extract information from these images automatically, using deep learning in this case, to understand what's happening in the images and what can we see in those streets that we can convert into data that people might want to use. And so that's how you achieve scalability on the image capture. Anyone can contribute. And scalability on the data extraction you achieve using computer vision in this case to analyze the images and automatically extract data, like in this example, traffic sign recognition. So once we've done that, we also compute a 3D model. So if you walk down the street with your smartphone, as this example here from a city in France, we compute a 3D model behind the scenes. And we do that so that you can get nice and beautiful transitions when you're browsing the images on Mapillary or any of our client integrations. But we're also doing it so that the things that we detect in the images, we can position on a map. We know where things are. Here's another example of what we're doing with the images to figure out where the sidewalks are, where the road is, where we can find trees and buildings in city landscapes. So with that technology, we're able to take images collected from random people's smartphones when they're out mapping, out taking pictures, from action cameras on hoods of cars, whatever volunteers like to use, and we automatically convert it into data that the city, the local government, or the mapping companies can use. So that's it. That's Mapillary. Thank you.
Thank you, Erik, and thank you for moving to my letting me stand in my favorite part. Yeah. Excellent. We talked. You guys are taking on Google as well, right? What do you think that you have that they don't?
I mean, we're very focused. That's for one. And then we're independent, so they're never going to sell their data. So our business is providing these images and selling this data to cities, local governments, mapping companies, small and large. And so Google and Apple, they're not going to sell their map data to you. But we can do that because we don't really care. We don't build a map solution. Yeah.
And actually, you have like a SaaS model, right? Or when you sell that data.
Yeah, that's correct.
How does that work? Like, is there a lot of companies that need this data? I mean, like, to me, like, I completely understand you can sell the data to these organizations, but for a monthly kind of access, is there enough kind of organizations who are looking for it on that regular basis?
Yeah, and this is the thing that most people don't think about. Like, everyone is using this non-scalable approach to collecting data. So even cities are buying Street View. So they hire companies to come and drive Street View vehicles up and down all their streets. So they can get imagery into their system where they maintain their geodata. Like where the manholes are, where the bus stops are, where the lights are, everything. And they need to maintain that data. And they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars each time they need to collect new images of the city, which is just completely bananas because they're all there. They're visiting every single street themselves in a span of weeks. And so in this case, they can collect images whenever they need them. And we charge $250 per month for the entire city to use that data through the platform.
Okay, yeah, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
With kind of the success of Pokemon Go, were you guys like a bit tempted to go all in with gamification and kind of go for that route at all, kind of encouraging people to take more and stuff like that? How do you kind of encourage the community to kind of take these photos and how do you tap into gamification? Is that something that you think about a lot?
It is something we think about, yeah. And actually, so when Pokemon Go came out, it was actually suddenly a lot of our community members were relieved because now it was socially acceptable to walk around taking pictures with your phone because before they felt a little bit awkward. No, but we do think about it a lot. Like so far, it's very much an early adopter crowd, and they're usually self-motivated. Like they take pictures with a purpose already now. But to spread it more broadly, then yes, like there will be points and scores and stuff like that in the system too.
And how do you nurture that community that are taking the photos? How do you engage them? How do you encourage them? How do you kind of just keep them as part of your community and kind of almost doing it together, right?
Yeah. And so we've been doing it together since day one. We launched this very early when it was like barely functioning. And we iterated it in the open with our community. So we've done all our bug tracking in public. We've been very, very active and visible to try to listen to what these early adopters say.
And I've noticed kind of throughout the year, you've kind of been hitting kind of milestones in terms of numbers, in terms of photos that have been taken, stuff like that. What's the kind of the big landmark that's next up for you guys that you're trying to hit?
I don't know. It's like so the other day, a few days ago, we passed 100 million photos, and that day I thought, okay, we're 10% to a billion, but I'm not sure that that's the next landmark. But if we're looking at countries where we have strong activity, it's like between 50 and 60, and that's not enough. And so people don't move around enough for you to cover the world with the kind of community we have now. We need to grow it. Yeah.
I gave Malmo a little shout out in,
I heard that.
in
That's
your
awesome.
intro.
Yeah. You should all come visit.
Yeah, it's a great place and really a great scene. And actually, that's my question, right? Like, why do you think there is? I would say Malmo is kind of like a deeper tech kind of talent that exists there, or at least that's kind of what I see as its expertise. Why do you think there is that kind of cluster in Malmo?
I mean, it's fairly small, and it sort of grew out of a small group of key people that sort of did at least the first generation of that startup community. And there's a fairly open mindset of helping each other out. And I mean, everyone I know will take 20, 30 minutes coffee with anyone if they need help. And it's usually centered around like 3 or 4 locations, so it's actually not hard to find people either. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, check out Mapillary, check out Malmo, and that was our last company actually. We've now reached the end of the presenting companies for the Nordic Showcase. So please give Jan Erik a round of applause and an applause for all of our companies as well. And thank you for sticking with us and have a great evening. Thank you.